88.5 UFM. It's all about you.
We're still right here on the Touchdown Lagos Drive Time Show, 88.5 UFM. My name is ADT, the Radio OG, and if you check your time on Tuesday on a 4:30, we bring you your money and you. This is where we at 88.5 UFM, because our slogan is we're all about you. And one very important aspect of you is your money. And we care enough about how you use your money and what you do with your money and how much money you're going to make a lot more this year. And that is why Your Money and You is a segment of the Touchdown Lagos Drive Time Show. Now today, we'll be delving into something that I consider quite important with the current climb, or with the Nigerian times. How do I mean? I feel this year should be declared in every church as the year of taxes. So 2026, welcome to my year of taxes, actually, because we're all going to pay taxes this year. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it's law and it's already in full motion. But here, we're here to help, put you through what you need to know, particularly about, the new tax regime, the new tax act, what you should avoid, what you should be aware of, and how to basically navigate this whole terrain. And joining us today to discuss this very interesting conversation is somebody who I've been having a conversation with off the microphone, and I have to say that she's quite the bubble. All right, how do I mean? Bubble of life and bubble of energy. Right? She hardly smiles, but when she does, I can assure you that a smile can power up the whole universe. It's as simple as that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Touchdown Lagos Drive Time. Oh, please. Were you being real with the it, or you just being dramatic?
Yeah, dramatic.
See what I say? Bubble of life and a bubble of energy. Who am I talking about? Today we have in the studio Konyisola Goodluck. She's a tax expert with Anderson Nigeria, and she's helped thousands of Nigerians and even expatriates file their tax returns and obtain clearance certificates. And she's here joining us today. Good afternoon, Konyisola. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I have to say that you look like, sunshine.
I would hope so.
Very
it's been a
bright
long week.
and radiant. Well, tell me, how was the journey down here? Was it good?
It was all right.
Did you encounter Lagos traffic as usual?
Of course. It's a wonderful, it's been a beautiful day so far. But of course, the Lekki Bridge has to remind us that we are at its mercy. And even though we built it, we are at its mercy.
I like the way you say that. I think that's the whole of Lagos, literally. You can wake up at late, you go like, I'm going to get to work at 9 a.m. Lagos like, excuse me, hold up. Who are you? I decide when you get to work. No, you tell me when you get to work.
Next time, plan better.
Let us dive right in. So let's get the big picture. Now, the government passed a new tax law that took effect January 1st this year. Now, before we get into, what is not, what should be, what we should do and what we should not, can we just in a few words and a few sentences summarize in your own words and with your own experience what has changed with the new tax act and what obtained before really?
All right. So I think for your listeners this evening, the most important thing to be aware of is that the PIT rates, that is the personal income tax rates, the last time that they were updated was actually 2011.
Wow.
So they're very out of date. And the former regime, like the one we were using before, it was established, of course, quite a few years ago, and is no longer reflective of the current economic situation of the country. So in order to, of course, fix that and make it so that the taxes are more fair than they were at that time, that is the main point of this new regime. Particularly what Mr. Taiwo and the government want to do is they want to reduce the tax burden on low and middle income earners and not really increase, but just make it so that higher income earners are the ones bearing the brunt of taxation as opposed to lower income earners.
I like this, and quite frankly, in your words, this of course eases the burden on low income earners, and people would pay according to their income brackets.
Yes,
it's a good thing.
It is.
But why do you think, in your opinion, a lot of people are sort of in a dissonance with the new tax regime and the law itself.
I think because when the tax laws were first announced and
Yes.
people got to see like the first few drafts,
Yes.
there was a lot of misinformation.
Okay.
Like I think the funniest one for me was definitely the narration thing.
Okay.
I loved seeing all the memes about how you receive 50 million naira and you tag it as
As
gift
gifts.
so that they don't tax it. But no, like just from a legal point of view, whether it's the Lagos state or the federal government, they are not just going to take taxes from your account.
Okay.
Aside from the transfer levy,
Okay.
that's the only one that when you make a transfer, it debits you 50 naira. But at the same time, that is not something that's going to be happening on a regular basis.
Yes.
What people need to know is that just do your narrations as you have always done them. The only time a narration is ever going to be relevant is when you are under audit.
Okay.
Like for example, if you need to give your bank statements to like
Somebody.
the LIRS or the FIRS when they're doing an audit, and they're like, oh, what is this? What is this?
Okay.
But what they are interested in is the substance of the transaction.
Okay.
If it's just a transfer, if you're just sending money between maybe your accounts or sending to somebody for whatever purpose,
Okay.
only certain things are taxable. Like if you look at like the new ones that people should be interested in are the Nigeria Tax Act and the Nigeria Tax Administration Act.
Act.
That's the NTA
Okay,
and the
yes.
NTAA. So those things or those laws, they basically tell you what is it that is taxable. If what you're making is not a taxable supply or is not taxable income, you don't have to worry. If your salary is paid into your account, don't worry, nobody is going to tax it automatically.
Yes.
Because even the way it works in Nigeria is that firms, that is companies of a certain size or
Yes.
businesses of a certain size, when
Okay.
you have a certain number of employees,
Okay.
you're supposed to file taxes on behalf of your employees. So what you do is you deduct it from their pay slip, you
Yes.
show them how much you deducted,
Yes.
and then you remit that at the end of each month. So don't worry about your money getting taxed suddenly.
Yes.
There's no need to panic about that. Just know that keep doing your narrations as you've always done them. Just be aware of what your tax obligations are.
Oh, I like this. Like you said, there's been a frenzy about what exactly should be done with regards, transactions to your accounts. Like you said, narration. And it's one aspect of for a lot of Nigerians that they don't pay attention to. I mean, I know a couple of times where I've left my narration, space blank. I've just left it blank when I was making the transfer or do something. And when of course the new tax law was announced, everybody was going, oh, what we need to do? And like you said, people were saying, oh, put as gifts, put as this and put as that. So if I hear you right, it's almost irrelevant in this case in time.
It's irrelevant, really and truly.
So please,
what you need to be worried about is what type of transaction are you making?
making?
Why are you making this
Okay.
amount? Or
Yes.
why are you paying this amount?
Amount of money.
Why are you receiving this amount?
it's a deadline
Mm-hmm.
to file taxes.
Yes.
Who does it apply to? Is it to everybody? Is it to individuals or businesses? And why or how should it be done before the deadline?
So if you're somebody who earns a salary,
Okay.
you don't have to worry about doing anything so much for your taxes because
Okay.
like I said before, it is your company or the firm you are working for, if they're big enough, that is going to file it on your behalf.
Yes.
So you've already seen the tax deductions on your payslip up
Yes.
until now.
Now, yes.
So on the 31st of January, companies are supposed to have filed all of their employees' taxes. That's their tax returns
Yes.
by the 31st of January.
Yes.
Then, by the 31st of March, that
yes.
is when individuals who are earning other income outside of their salary
Oh.
will then make returns using whichever platform their state is using.
Okay. So let's now go into the nitty-gritty now. Getting started for the individuals, right?
Okay.
As you stated, if you work with a company, most likely it'll have been deducted from your payslip, and the January 31st deadline, was for businesses and organizations to do. Now, for March 31st, individuals who earn income outside their, their salaries or whatever it is that they do for certain organizations concerns them. Getting started, what should Nigerians know about? I mean, there's a TIN now.
Yes.
There's also the talks of your NIN being automatically your TIN, right? Walk us through that. Getting started. are we registering on the platform? You spoke about a website that is relevant to the states. For example, in Lagos, it's the LIRS,
Yes.
and a different state as well. So walk us through that process exactly.
So the first question somebody who's worried about taxes needs to ask is, do I have a tax ID or do I know my tax ID?
Okay.
So for example, the people here in Lagos, what they can do is literally just go onto the internet, go to LIRS e-tax website.
Okay.
And from there, you just have to go to the register for taxes. There's a
Okay.
very large green button that tells
Okay.
you to register for taxes.
Taxes, yeah.
And all you need to register for taxes and get a tax ID
Okay.
is you just need a phone number, an email address,
Okay.
your BVN or your NIN, and you might need some kind of ID, but I don't think it's so necessary. Just at the very least have of course, your name, your BVN, your NIN, and all those details. You'll fill it in, and then it will automatically generate a tax ID for you. If you provide a number or an email, they will just forward it to you through that. So it doesn't matter if you're in Lagos or if you're in another state. Most states, we thank God, are now going digital. Like from as far back as 2019 to 2020, many states have started going digital. When I first started working in tax, we would have to file most things with paper, like physical
Yes,
pen and
yes,
paper. You have to go and
yes.
print and everything. But now, for example, the FIRS, or what is now the NRS,
Yes.
they have their Tax Pro Max system that launched a few years ago. Then, of course, LIRS, that's for Lagos State. But now Cross River State, Delta State, Akwa Ibom State, all these states, they all have online platforms to make it easier for people to engage with government and revenue collecting bodies.
Yes.
So it's very simple. Just whichever state you are, just Google how to register for taxes. It will most likely take you to their website, and you can just follow the instructions from there.
Okay, so quick one. Go online, search for the relevant,
Tax
revenue.
IRS.
Yes, in your state, and of course register on there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing we hear often, all right, of course is with tax clearance certificates.
Yes.
TCC.
Mm-hmm.
All right. People often ask, and this is a question that is always asked with people generally: why do I need one?
So,
All right.
depending on the type of work that you do,
Okay.
and depending on the type of things or services that you want to be able to
Render,
enjoy,
yes.
a TCC is necessary.
Okay.
Like, not having a TCC can actually cause rather significant disruptions to your business.
Yes.
So, like, one example that I can give is, for example, I've done work for maritime companies as
Yes.
well as oil and gas companies,
Okay.
and particularly for oil and gas guys, if they want to bid for certain projects, you cannot bid without a TCC.
Okay.
You have to prove that you are compliant with the tax laws, and so it gives the person who is contracting you confidence that, okay, this person I'm working with is trustworthy, they're not owing the government or anything. There are certain positions
Yes.
of government or certain roles that you can't actually apply for because you need to be able to show that you are tax compliant in order
Yes.
to do those roles.
Yes. It's I like how we've broken it down now, and we've seen the importance of, as you said, the importance of the TCC. It engenders trust, between organizations and even between people as well. you
Yes.
know. Like you said, in case of people that you've worked for, maritime companies and oil and gas companies, usually it's a sign for for contractors to say, okay, this guy is law compliant,
Yes.
is tax compliant, and it's almost like it gives to your integrity as a company or as a group. Now, on the flip side, and this is going to be on an individual level right now, because everybody wondering out there, like, okay, because let's be honest, in the last 10 or 15 years, one of the mantras of the government has been to always expand the tax brackets, and that is based off the fact that quite a lot of Nigerians are not paying tax.
Yes.
And inferring from that logic, you can say that a lot of Nigerians are not used to paying tax or used to the
Yes.
idea of tax.
Yes.
Right? And you can further go on to say that from that logic as well, because a lot of Nigerians don't pay tax, a lot of Nigerians are not used to the idea of not paying tax, you can say that Nigerians do not see the relevance of tax. Right? If we go into it, what are the implications on an individual level for the average Nigerian? Because yes, you handicap the government in a way,
Yes.
right? But what are the individual implications that it has on people if we neglect or we fail to pay our taxes?
So, just starting from like just the legal standpoint, if you don't file your taxes on time or pay your taxes on time, there are fines and penalties for non-compliance, and they are stated in the law. For example, there are penalties for if you don't register for taxes.
Okay.
There are penalties for if you don't file on time. There's even penalties for if you fail to keep adequate records. That's, let's say you're a sole trader or your partnership,
Yes.
and you need to be able to pay taxes. If you don't keep adequate records, there's also a fine for that. So these penalties, they're monetary. They're not cute, they're monetary. And depending on what law it is that you have broken,
Yes.
they can actually keep accumulating over time.
Oh.
So a lot of these penalties are described in chapter 4 of the NTAA. It actually starts from, I think, section 100. So if you have access to the law, you can go ahead and have a look at that. But that's just the baseline, is that there's monetary penalties that you could pay,
Yes.
whether it's for yourself or for your business, and you don't want to have issues with that.
Yes.
Because, like, for example, if you are an individual or you have a company,
Okay.
and if your company doesn't pay their annual returns or file their annual returns
Okay.
on time,
Yes.
what happens is you get automatically a 10% penalty. So
Ah.
that thing increases by 10%,
10%.
and then it also increases by the MPR rate at the time.
Ah.
So I think at a point it was 21%. So whenever my clients had issues and the FIRs would send them like a notice, you would see that it would have penalties and interest.
Wow.
And those things accrue over time.
Over time.
So it's important to understand that there's all of those issues that could arise with you. Then another thing about not paying your taxes is when you incur those penalties, you get unplanned cash outflows.
Okay.
If you're an individual who is strapped for cash, or you're a person running a small business that's strapped for cash,
Yes.
you don't want to be paying penalties. Penalties are the last expense that you need, especially because penalties are not tax deductible. When you're computing your taxes, those things, you can't say, oh, I am allowed to use this to reduce my taxes.
Yes.
No, you
So
have to
pay
add it back
penalties
on.
and you pay taxes as well.
Exactly. So there's all of those kinds of issues as well. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. Quite frankly. So legally, obviously, it's wrong because it's you contravening the laws of the land, and obviously, financially as a person or a group, it's also not going to help your case.
Yes.
Literally. So let's take a detour now. Now, we know that we need to pay our taxes this year, whether we like it or not. We know that we need to, this is a law, or this is a reality that we have to adjust to. Right now, let's look at what we should not do should we choose to comply with this law and this act. Right? What are the things? Okay, in filing taxes now as an individual or group, what are the things we should look out for? Like, for example, when we started the show, you spoke about how narrations do not really matter. So we've disproved that myth. Right? It doesn't hold water. Now, moving up, what are the things that I should look out for when filing my taxes? What are the things I should take into consideration when filing my taxes? What are the things I should honestly avoid and should not be caught doing while trying to file my taxes, both on an individual level and also as a group or as a business?
All right. So the most important thing that you can do to help yourself to keep your tax liabilities low, to keep your tax responsibilities low,
Yes.
you just need to keep adequate records. When you make a tax payment, make sure you know where your receipt is. Whenever you send an invoice, make sure it has all the information that it's supposed to have, your tax ID, all those things. When you send out invoices, when you receive invoices, whenever you're trying to pay your expenses,
Yes.
keep your records. If you make a purchase, make sure you have all the details of that purchase down to the line. Because having that, like for example, we have technology now to help us with that.
Yes.
So it's much easier to track where your money is going and how it's coming in. So as long as you have the backup for all of those items, it is very difficult for the tax authorities to find fault with what you're doing. So always have your records, especially when you pay your taxes, know where your receipts are. Because receipts are like gold when it comes to, for example, going for audits or being approached like,
yes.
oh, you actually haven't paid this, but no, I'm going to send you an email and I have all the receipts to prove that I
yes,
paid it.
yes.
And then what they'll do is they'll cancel it and you'll be good. So keep your records. Whenever you're making transactions, be very clear about what the transaction is for. Even if you don't put it in your narration necessarily, you just need to know where your money is going and how it's being used. So that when it's time to account for it, you can justify yourself to whichever tax authority that no, this is not revenue. This is something else. Exactly.
Okay, so document, have records is very key. Keep receipts.
Yes.
These are three things I'm not going to take away. Now, with the tax collection, there have been conversations about linking, tax IDs to BVNs.
Yes.
Right? And to the average Nigerian, it sounds like surveillance, right? And it's not going to be bordering on privacy issues, right? So one question will now be, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people go worried about the narration, because it feels like they're going to be debiting me taxes almost on every money that comes to my account, right? So with the conversation about linking your tax IDs to BVN, do you feel that this actually borders on, does this break some privacy rules, or does this bring up the question of privacy and surveillance in the mind of Nigerian?
I think it's okay to have those type of concerns.
Yes.
When you think about government surveillance, it doesn't really feel very good.
Yes.
Because of the types of implications that could occur, like not just from privacy but for safety.
Yes.
Like, why do you have to link all of this? But you need to remember that the way things work in other countries may not necessarily work here in Nigeria. So that kind of widespread linking is more about finding out who is in this nation. It's more about knowing really what are people earning, how are people living, who am I, who is this person that I want to tax.
Okay.
So it's more for record keeping and record alignment, because look, the tax thing is very complicated and it was very scattered. Like in the previous regimes, we had so many taxes.
Yeah.
Like, I think the reason why people are so hyped up right now is because the personal income taxes actually got a hit.
Yes.
But in the past few years, whether it's the maritime guys, the oil and gas guys, they've been getting hit after hit after hit after hit. So it's normal to kind of freak out at that type of thing.
Yes.
But the important thing to know is this is mainly just for record keeping, at least from what they have communicated. That is what I can see, that it's mainly just for record keeping, for tracking what people are doing. I know that sounds very bad, but at the same time, it's important that the governments that we have right now get access to more information, because in other countries, that information is kind of readily available. But the average Nigerian, due to poverty or whatever reason, is just off the grid. So it's just to get a better idea of who is in this nation, what are they earning, what do we need to do.
Yes. I mean, I like that, you put it, so it's all just data that government needs to make better decisions, going forward. Not just even regarding tax, but also regarding, maybe developing the nation.
Exactly.
As it were. One question will now be, in your experience, because you file taxes for people, companies across different sectors, right? One question will be, what mistakes do you see often that, taxpayers make when they are filing their taxes, whether it's individual or whether it's as an institution or as a business? Or what popular mistakes have you seen people make with filing their taxes particularly?
So, well, when filing your taxes, maybe, for example, I think if you don't have accurate records, that makes it very hard for you to file your taxes.
Wow.
Because, like, for example, you should be able to say, what is my revenue? What are my costs? How much have I paid taxes already this year? Do I have withholding tax credits that I can use? Those types of things are very important to know. If you're not in the know of all those things, you don't get to really reap the benefits.
Yes.
I don't know, are you familiar with what withholding tax is? So withholding tax is not like a tax by itself. It's just a means for the government to have a regular cash inflow.
Yes.
And what they do is, for depending on what the transaction is, there are certain rates.
Okay.
And what you do is that if you have an invoice for example, rent invoices, the withholding tax is 10%.
10%,
so that
yes,
10% you remit it to the government.
Okay.
And what happens is you get a credit. You use that credit to offset your taxes later on in the year when it's time to file the annual returns.
Okay.
So it's important to have those, like, it all boils down to, again, to just record keeping. Then also another mistake I've seen is that maybe you don't fully understand the terms that are being used in the, like, for example, on the platform.
Okay.
Because if you're somebody who has never used a tax platform before, or you've never paid taxes before, there's a lot of jargon. Not to confuse you, but just because that's the type of legalese that we are dealing with in that type of sector.
Yes.
So if you don't know what something means, make sure to check it.
Okay.
One good thing about the laws is that even before now, they have always had definitions. So if there's something you don't understand, go and check it. Then I think something that's a bit more specific, be careful with how you record your expenses. Okay. Because revenue expenditure and capital expenditure have different tax treatments. And I've actually seen it. I've gone for an audit at the NRS that we had a client, and what they had done is they had booked capital expenditure as revenue expenditure. So when it was time for us to try to defend them during the audit, the FIRS was like, no, look at this invoice. This
Yes.
invoice shows clearly that it was a capital expenditure.
Expenditure.
And it was. So at the end of the day, they were able to tax them on that.
Wow.
So your records, keep them straight. Be careful with definitions. If there's something you don't understand, seek help. It's okay to want to do many things in-house, but there's a reason why consulting is such a big thing. Someone else is being paid to get the knowledge that you need. Of course, I understand, like, look, consulting services can be expensive,
True.
but there's a consulting service for every budget. So if you're a small company, you don't need a big company to do it. If you're a big company, you're better off getting a big company to do it just for the safety and the risk management. But that's just, I think that answers the question.
Yes. So key things: keep records, seek more information on things that you don't understand. If you can outsource, very
Yes.
important. And be careful with how you label, certain transactions, especially as you spoke about the capital, expenditure, as well as revenue expenditure as well. You have been doing this for years. Well, 7 years experience in this field particularly. And one question would be, what advice would you give to the listener right now, the average Nigerian listener right now, on about the taxes? What would you tell them if you had 10 minutes or 5 minutes, to tell what advice people listening on taxes? I want you to know what would be your opinion?
So do not be bogged down by a lot of the negativity on social media.
Okay.
One of the easiest types of content to make is content that is panic inducing,
Yes.
or content that is bashing the Nigerian government for whichever reason.
Okay.
It's very easy content because it's something that all of us can relate to.
Yes.
But you need to remember that when it comes to something sensitive like tax, the layman, the average Nigerian, is not informed enough. Not because there's education issues,
Yes.
but then at the same time, tax is kind of niche. Most people, especially because in this country they file taxes for us, you don't need to ask so many questions. Or before,
yes.
you didn't need to ask so many questions. But don't be afraid. When there are new tax laws, get ahead of them. Don't do your research. If you need to read articles, read articles. Multiple big four firms and the like, they always publish articles about that to help you understand. So just go ahead, do your research, do your due diligence, see what applies to you and what doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
Then in regards to the new PIT rates, I want everybody to understand that many people are actually going to see that their take-home income is higher.
Yes.
Because before, we didn't have a 0% tax band. Now we do. The first 800,000 naira that you earn is
Yes.
taxed at 0%.
Yes.
So if you are earning that amount or less than that amount, automatically you're exempt from tax.
Yes.
So it's once you cross that threshold that you begin to accrue taxes. Then another thing I want everybody to be cognizant of is that before, under the old regime, the highest tax rate was 2.4%. Was 24%.
Yes.
And to pay 24%, you just had to be earning over like 3.2 million naira. But the highest tax rate now is 25%. And to pay 25% taxes, you have to be earning 50 million naira plus. So there's been a massive change.
Changing that.
Yes, so don't be too afraid. Of course, if you're a higher income earner, don't be afraid, but understand that the pinch might be a bit more than what it was before. But understand that this new regime is, in effect, much fairer than the previous one was.
Thank you very much, Koyisola. Good luck. That was, a great breakdown you gave. Thank you for helping us make sense of this new, what I call it, new chapter or new tax landscape. Had some really interesting takeaways. One of them, of course, was the breaking the age-old myth of, narration stuff. It doesn't really matter. I think what is more important is for you to keep your records,
Yes.
keep your receipts, also know where your money is going to and what is being used. Have a clear understanding where your money is going to
Yes.
and what is being used for. And also, I think which is more or less the biggest, takeaway for me is what you don't know, seek help and seek information about. And I think that's one of the reasons why we had to bring you here, so that we could have a better understanding of what it is that we need to know. Things about a bit of a gray area.
Yes. There's
particularly.
lots of free resources
Yes.
from reputable sources, whether it's big four firms or even smaller accounting firms.
Okay.
Those are the experts.
Okay.
Those guys, they put out that information to help you specifically. So go ahead and look at it.
Would you? I would like to ask you. Can you point, maybe name drop, mention names of where they can find the resources, particularly?
So of course I'm gonna drop my firm
Go
first.
ahead. Yeah.
So the firm I work for, Anderson,
Yes.
the commercial practice group recently put out an article explaining, like particularly addressing all the rumors that were going around. The main ones. The narration one is also part of that.
That's it.
So if you want to go ahead and take a look at that, you can. Of course, KPMG, PwC, the regular big four firms that you know and that some of you work for. So go ahead, go to their sites, go ahead and read. If you don't want to do that, there's also the federal government site, the NRS website. You can
Yes.
go and read there as well. And a lot of these tax authorities, they now have phone numbers or emails that you can reach them. So if you need more information, just go ahead and find it.
Thank you very much once more, Konyisola. Good luck. Thank you very much for coming through. Hopefully, one of these days we can have you come back again. You know, maybe give us a more, in-depth, maybe a few. Hopefully, in the future, we can have you come back and maybe take us through and maybe revise a couple of things that we might have missed, or we need to know if there's an update, because there's still a couple of conversations going on in the Senate about what should be, what should not be, certain inconsistencies, and hopefully when that is done, we'll have you come back and help us shed a lot more light on that. But thank you very much. Before you go, I have to ask you, what song are you feeling right now?
Let me see. What's a good one? You could play Can You Stand the Rain by New Edition.
Okay, I'll try find that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're done on Your Money and You today on 88.5 UFM. It happens every Tuesday from 4:30 down to 5. Up next, we're bringing you Danfo Tunes. Don't touch your radio. Keep it locked.
88.5 UFM. It's all about you.